Hello everyone, welcome to this next session of our Swift programming course. I am Chidben Namdi and I'll be your instructor and guide in this tutorial. Now here we'll be learning about the basic syntax and variables in Swift language. So we'll be learning about the data types in Swift, constants and variables, then type inference and type safety in Swift programming language. Now first, let's look at Swift program structure. Now, looking at here, we have the most basic statement you can write in Swift and it will print out the text for you. So to follow the culture, let us remove this and print hello world as our first program we have run in Swift. So you come here and edit the Swift code that was previously here. Then we'll open up the our console. You see the console is empty. So this is our console, and whatever statement I will write out here and click on this run my code, it will execute and print out any output here. So this is just a basic statement in Swift that prints out output in our console. So whatever we pass in between these parentheses will be the data it will print out. And this print statement is a function. So it's not a keyword in Swift, and we'll come to the keyword features in Swift later in this video. So this print is an inbuilt function in Swift. So that's why we are calling it here without any import or declaration of the function anywhere in our program. So when we click on this run my code, it will execute whatever you have here and then print out the result in this right hand side. Now we have this text hello world, which is our first statement ever in our first step in learning Swift programming language. So we click on this run my code to run for some time and then it will execute. So we see hello world. So congratulations, we have run our first program in Swift. So now let's look at the basic program structure in Swift. So like many other modern programming languages, Swift draws its basic syntax from the C language. And also, if you have previous programming languages with other C-inspired languages like the C++, Java, C Sharp, Objective-C, then you will find many aspects of Swift very familiar. So Swift doesn't really deviate from most of all those programming languages syntax that you already know if you are coming from the C-inspired languages. Now let's look at the following Swift basic syntax. Now, in a Swift program, it is made up of statements executed sequentially. Now, this is a statement that will be executed. Now, we can run as many statements in Swift, and when we click on this run my code, it will pick one statement, execute it. Then after running it, it will pick another one, execute it, and pick the next till the last statement. Then it exits. Now here we have one statement, print hello world. We have another statement. Now let's just call it Swift course. Now we have this third statement here. Now let's just output uh, Swift is fast and clean. So we have three statements here and they're all print statements. Now when we run our code, Swift will start by executing this statement sequentially. Sequentially is top to bottom, one after the other. It will pick this, execute it. After the execution of this, it will go to the next statement, pick it up and execute it. Then after executing that statement, it will move to the next statement, pick it up and execute it. Then after this statement, there is no longer any other statements here. Then Swift will now exit. So let's run this thing, you will see. So you run it. So you see it. When we clicked on the run my code, Swift picked up the first statement, which is this, and outputted what is in between here. Now this statement now is a function call statement. Now it outputted it, and that's why we saw this in our console. Now will it after the execution of this, it went to the next, which is this, executed it. That's why we now saw this in our console. Then after that, it picked up this, executed it, and that's why we are seeing this in our console. Then after that, it now exited. That's why we have no other output. Now it's not a must that all the statements must output anything in the console. So we are having this console here because this print outputs data to the console. There are other statements that do not output anything to the console. Like for example, let's say variable declaration. let's just say this variable declaration here. So this is a statement also. Swift will execute it, but will not see any output in the console because it does not output anything to the console. In fact, to output anything to the console, you just need to use this, and it will output the execution to the console. So we can just also add another print statement here, and then print out this variable login. So this is a statement, this is another statement. So after the execution of this, Swift will execute this, which is a variable declaration, then execute this to print out whatever we declared here. Now let's see it. So you see, it started from the beginning, executed this, then after that this, then after that it executed this, after that it executed this statement, then after that it now executed this statement to print out this variable declaration. Now you see, after this we had this output here, then it executed this, but we do not see any output on the console. This is because this does not output anything to the console. It's a statement. So a statement does not is not a must to output anything to the console. It will output anything to the console if the statement expression deems so, like this print statement. And we have all other statements like the conditional flow. And just say if login attempt. So this is another statement. It does not output anything to the console, but it will execute to. It's still a statement. So this is a conditional statement. Now this is a statement too. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statements now in our Swift. So Swift executes its code sequentially. So now to understand this execution of code sequentially and also the coding just simply mean uh, instructing the computer what to do. So this is just like we are instructing the computer, please print out this text, hello world, to the console. Now this second statement, the same thing, we are instructing it, please print out this Swift course text to the console. And also the third statement, this, we are telling it, please print out Swift is fast and clean to the console. It does that. Now the fourth statement, we are not telling it that please create a variable in the RAM, then assign this login attempt name to the variable and initialize it to 0. So you see, it's an instruction. Statements are instruction given to the computer on what to do. So computer are not smart. They are just executing and working on the instructions that are given to them. Now also, this third statement tells the computer to please print out whatever value we have in this login attempt variable. So you see that coding is just like giving instructions to someone. Like for example, if we want to cook a certain food, we have the recipe for cooking a food. Like let me say for baking bread, we have the recipe for that. Like for example, we can go to our Google browser and browse recipe for baking bread. Now you will see the recipes. Now the recipe or the instructions for baking bread are just like giving the a computer instructions. So these are instructions on how you bake a bread. So if you follow the instructions from the letter from top to bottom, you will finally bake a bread. So you see this recipe, they will say how to make a bread, proof the yeast. So these are instruction. Instruction one, proof the yeast in a large bowl or sand mixer, add the yeast, water, pinch of salt. So these are instructions, just like telling a computer, hey, print this text for me to the screen. Now we have the second instruction, prepare the dough, add remaining sugar or honey, salt, oil, or 3 cups of flour, mix to combine. So these are instructions. Knead the dough, then first rise. So this, then the fifth one, punch the dough down, divide, slice, and then bake. Then following these instructions sequentially from top to bottom, you finally be able to bake a bread. So this is similar to what we have in computer. If you can understand it this way, then programming will be very easy for you to understand. It's just like giving the computer instruction on what you want it to do. You can give the computer instruction to print out hello world at 10 o'clock every day. You can give it the instruction to print out this whenever a variable is either true or false. You can give it instruction to print out this when I am in Norway or in London. So these are just instructions the computer will obey and do. That is what programming, the basic meaning of programming. Now let's go to the second basic syntax of Swift. Now the second basic syntax of Swift says that more than one statement are allowed per editor line when separated by a semicolon. So you see that we added this statement here. We went down to add a second statement, and that. Now we can add multiple statements in a line, provided that they are divided by semicolon. Now we can move this statement here, but this will not work because we do not have semicolon. We need to put semicolon here. So semicolon is just this symbol here. We add it here, then our error goes away, and this will execute. So you'll see. Now we can add multiple statements in a line, provided that they are added before the semicolon. So you see the semicolon enables us to add statements in one line. So you see we have succeeded in adding all our 5 statements in a single line, and they will work the same. So you see. So when they are not, when they're in multi-line, we can then omit the semicolon and they will still work the same. You can omit the semicolon and they will still work the same. So you see our Swift code is running. So now another basic syntax of Swift we need to understand is that the units of work in Swift are modularized using functions and organized into type. We'll still come to that. Yeah, we can create functions. Now functions are made to hold a similar code, a similar unit of code together. So we can modularize it by creating functions types so that we can use this function whenever we want. So now this is a function. So this is how we define. We'll still come to the function, but just to show you all the basic syntax we have in Swift, we'll still come to this function to explain it in deep. So this is what we call by modularization using functions and then organize them into types. So with this, we can bring uh, units of code or statements that have the same meaning and do the same function into this function so that we can call this function to perform that piece of logic or code anywhere in our Swift program. Now let's look at the next basic syntax. Now functions can accept one or more parameters and return values. Now we'll come to that. Now this function, we can pass parameters to that because functions might need what they will need to work. You might pass a parameters to a function to tell it or to give it hand or things to work with. Now, for example, let's have this. Maybe now you are baking a bread and you're giving instructions on how to bake a bread. Now you will be given the stuffs you need to bake the bread, like the flour, the sugar, the pan, the oven. So these are just like the parameters passed to a function. Now the return value now we are talking about in a function is now like the actual bread that will be baked. After using all these parameters, the pan, the dough, the flour, and everything to bake the bread. So now all those things are the parameters, while the bread is now the return value. That's still the same on what we have in our function. So now the parameters can be passed here. Now let's call this param1. Can name it a string to be a string. Then also have param2. Don't worry about this, it can be a double, and then we can just return a value. From there you can just say param2, just times it by 2 and return it. Then add the return value here and our function is complete. So this is the parameters and now this is the return function. One of the basic syntax in the Swift programming language. Don't worry, we'll still come to this function deeply in a separate video and we'll deal with it. This is just done to show you the modularization and the function parameters and return values that we have in one of our basic syntax to know in Swift. Now, we can have comments in Swift. Yeah, comments. Now, this comments is used like when we need to add extra info to our code. Like for example, we might start writing a program in Swift or any other programming language, and we might leave that project for a long time, or another developer might take it up, and or we might come back to that project later in time. Now, we might forget what we actually did here. Now, to make us retain the memory there, we can actually use comments to add extra information on what happens to the code. Now, remember we said that whatever we type here will be executed by Swift, but this code or this information, we don't want it to be executed by Swift. So, this is a feature called comment in Swift programming language that enables us to add an unexecutable code or statement in Swift to help us or give us info on what is happening in a particular code or logic in our Swift program. So to do that, we do it by adding double slashes like this and say comment. So this is called a comment statement. It's an unexecutable code. So when we execute this program, it's a statement, but Swift will look at it and see that it is a comment and it will skip it. It will not execute it at all. So it will start from this statement and execute to that. So anywhere in our program that it encounters this comment, it will skip it. So we can write a comment using a single line or multi-line. So this is a single line comment. And also there will be a time when we might want our comments will be so long that it will enter the next line. That's where we use multi comment statement. And we can do it like this. And this is a comment one. You can also come here and say comment two. Now for multi-line, you can now say comment. Sorry, now let me copy this, and it enters the second line, and we have multi-line comments. So what we need to do to make this multi-line, we'll come here, add slash and asterisk, then come here to the end of the comment, add asterisk and hash. So now this is a comment, but it's a multi-line comment because it occupies more than one line in our editor. So this is the first line, this is the second line. So this is a multi-line comment. So in our Swift programming language, we can add a single line comment and a multi-line comment. These are not executed, they're just here to tell the developer that we're working on this what actually this is doing. So we can just add a readable or an eligible comment. Let's just say our first Swift program. Now we can add the date that we started. Let's call it April 30th 2024. So now let's add a multi-line comment like this. So we can now come here and say, you can now add your name, author. Come here and say Chidume Namdi. So this is how the comment looks like. Now to add a comment here, we can just say to be like this. We come here, add something. So we can add a comment to this function to tell the user what this comment does. So we just say that this function returns the double of a number. So you see, this is how comment works. It gives us the info on what a particular section of a code is doing, or also who wrote the code, the date it was written, and what the code does. So this is a comment in Swift. Now, Swift has data types and usages that are similar like we have in Java, C Sharp, and C++. Now, Swift is a data typed programming language, unlike JavaScript, which is a dynamically typed programming language. Now, Examples of data types programming languages are Java, C Sharp, C++. So data type means that whenever you declare a variable or any data has a type. And in Swift, we have so many data types. We'll still come to that in detail. We have int, we have string, int, we have boolean, we have string, we have structure, we have class, we have tuples, we have tuples. So now this int represents a number, and now in the number, it represents either unsigned integer and signed integer. Now we have the boolean. This represents true or false. Now string just represents a text, like just our name. Then structure used to represent a model. Then class also the same thing, where a group of methods that works the same are grouped into a class. Then tuple, arrays, dictionary, sets. So these are collections that are used to hold multiple values. So you can just envision this thing just like a library that holds books, or a bag that holds books. So now that bag is either an array, dictionary, or set. So they hold different kind of thing in one. So we can represent that thing, that bag, as a data type. So you see, Swift are data typed. Now whatever we do, it has a data type. Like this is a string, this is an integer because we have an integer zero number here. Now we can data type this like this to tell you, okay, now this is an int. We do something like this. So telling you that this is an int. Now, if we change this to a string, we'll have a problem because this is not a string. So we need to change it to an integer. So you see that everything in Swift is data type. Data type means that you have to give it the data type it represents. Unlike in JavaScript, if you come to JavaScript world where something like this can mean so many things. So we can have a string here, number, boolean, structure, class, dictionary, array in JavaScript, and it will still accept it. But in Swift, it's statically typed that you must specify the type, otherwise whatever you assign to it becomes the type of this variable. Now we have also in the basic syntax of Swift, we have the concept of named variables which are mutable or immutable. Now a variable can be mutable or immutable. Mutable, I mean by this, mutable or immutable. Immutable. Now, mutable means that the variable can be changed. Immutable means it cannot be changed. So these are the syntax of Swift that we need to understand. Like for example, here we have a variable and it's mutable means that it can be changed like this. It can be changed. Now, if this immutable, that means it's a constant. It cannot be changed, and that is done using the let keyword. Let keyword. So when we do this, this will fail because this is now a constant. It's not an immutable variable. We'll still come to that. Then another basic structure of Swift we need to understand is that it has both structure and class semantics. We have already covered that. And then it has no main. It has no main. So there's nothing to tell you that, okay, this is the entry point of a Swift program. Like I told you, the file you execute becomes the main point of the entry. So there's nothing to tell you that, okay, this particular section is the entry point of our code. No, whenever you execute the file, it executes from top to bottom, just like we have in JavaScript if you are coming from the JavaScript world. Now, in the next session, we'll enter into basic syntax of JavaScript. Then we will now learn constant variables, type inference, and type safety. So we just covered about the basic structure and the basic program syntax of the Swift programming language.